First, I just want to thank you and welcome you for coming out. I want to thank all our elected and appointed officials, to those students who have participated in this morning's program, who have joined us for this day of remembrance. Although Governor Holcomb was not able to attend today, he asked me to read a message on his behalf. Greetings. Thank you for attending the 21st Annual State of Indiana Holocaust Remembrance Program. As many survivors are no longer able to tell their stories, it is our duty to remember and honor the lives lost and the lessons learned from this tragic period in history. As your governor, I am moved by the stories of forgiveness and healings. Acts of bigotry and hatred should never be tolerated. But through education and remembrance, we'll continue to spread peace, respect, and kindness in Indiana. I regret I'm unable to attend today's program, but a priority of my administration is to help Indiana strive toward civility in all communities. Let us never forget the history, hardships, and lessons those remembered here today have brought us. Sincerely, Eric Holcomb, Governor of Indiana. The Indiana Civil Rights Commission and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission is proud to support the efforts of our partners, the Jewish Community Relations Council and the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, who bring us together for this event today. The events of the Holocaust should never enter the recesses of our mind, and its memory must be preserved within our state and our country. At this time, I want to ask Lindsay Mintz to come on stage with me, please. And at this time, I want to recognize 3 youth who have made a choice to honor the victims of the Holocaust and translate one of its many lessons through artistic expression. First, I'll call to the stage Ben Caulfield. Samara Cornett. And Logan Papp. Their commitment to remembrance and recognition of the importance of using our talents and voices serves as a collective reminder for us all to be upstanders in the face of bigotry and oppression. Let's give them a round of applause.
We are now going to watch a brief video that gives some history about why states like Indiana take a special moment to remember the Holocaust.
Memory is what shapes us. Memory is what teaches us. We must understand that's where our redemption is.
I think the important thing to understand about this cataclysmic event is that it happened in the heart of Europe. Germany was respected around the world for its leading scientists, its physicians, its theologians. It was a very civilized, advanced country. It was a young democracy, but it was a democracy. And yet it descended not only into social collapse, but world war and eventually mass murder.
A strong man came to power in Germany whose ideas were that Germany has to create a national community which would include only the Aryan race, which he considered superior, and all the people who did not belong to the Aryan race could be eliminated. With planning and propaganda, he was able to convince most of the German people to go along with him. Insensitive to what happened to the Jews who had basically been their former neighbors. And he managed to build concentration camps and killing centers and finally gas chambers to annihilate 6 million Jews, and at the same time also millions of others murdered in a systematic government-sponsored way.
And it's made up of so many people who participated in different ways, who made it possible.
People who follow orders without question. Bystanders who watch and do nothing. Ordinary men and women simply going with the flow.
The events and the results of the Holocaust were so devastating. It was an extreme that we can barely imagine.
So mind-boggling that the temptations to forget and to repress, to just put it out of mind, are very real.
But we remember. We remember because it is an unthinkable scar on humanity. We need to understand what human beings are capable of.
We gather today to mourn the loss of so many lives and celebrate those who saved them, honor those who survived, and contemplate the obligations of the living.
Days of Remembrance is our nation's annual commemoration of the Holocaust. This time that was both a blight on the history of humanity, but also a shining moment for the people who were brave enough to put an end to it.
We are remembering, first and foremost, all the victims. And that is not only the Jewish victims, but there were many non-Jewish victims. Of course, the Jews were the primary target.
The millions of innocent people, including my family and friends, who were killed because they were of the wrong religion, because they had no means of protecting themselves.
It's also important to remember the rescuers. These were people who risked not only their own lives, sometimes the lives of their family, to save a fellow human being. And we also remember our American soldiers who were fighting to win World War II, and in the course of that, liberated these concentration camps.
Those that arrived at the camps in 1945 and were just horrified with what they saw.
That was a huge task for the American soldiers to help bring humanity back to these people who had been dehumanized for years, to give them medical care.
Looking back allows us to understand how important it is for us to serve in a country where we have the strength and the might and the will to defend those that are defenseless.
So Days of Remembrance is an opportunity for us to remember the suffering that was and the efforts that were made to put an end to such suffering. And it's a call to conscience today in our world to make sure that we aren't the silent ones standing by, contributing to the suffering of others.
In 1945, at the end of the war, I would have thought that there would never be another Holocaust, that the world was so shocked by what had happened, that the world would not permit that. And yet you see what happened in Bosnia, what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Darfur. So there's still millions of people being persecuted because of their ethnicity.
It's really a moral challenge to us to do more in our own lives when we confront injustice or hatred or genocide.
Those who suffered and died in the Holocaust, we can honor them today by not being silent. Remembering ties the past and the present together with a powerful, simple thread. This is not right.
The important thing is that one should not become indifferent to the suffering of others, that one should not stand by and just raise one's hands and say, there's nothing I can do, I'm just a little one person. Because I think what every one of us does matters.
It's not enough to curse the darkness of the past. Above all, we have to illuminate the future. And I think that on the day of remembrance, the most important thing is to remember the humanity that is in all of us, to leave the world better for our children and for posterity.
Good afternoon. My name is Miriam Dant. I'm president of the Indianapolis Jewish Community Relations Council Board of Directors. Thank you for being here. It is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Joe Hogsett. In 2016, Mayor Hogsett was elected as the 49th mayor of Indianapolis. Just last week, Mayor Hogsett was re-elected to a second term. Prior to his election as mayor, Joe Hogsett served as Indiana's Secretary of State and U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana. I had the honor of working for Mayor Hogsett when he was Secretary of State, and I've witnessed firsthand his efforts throughout his career in public service to protect our civil rights, fight prejudice, and uphold equality and justice. We are honored to have him speak at the State of Indiana's Holocaust Remembrance Program. Mayor Joe Hogsett.
Well, good afternoon. On this sacred and solemn day, this day of remembrance and memory of redemption, I want to begin by thanking all of the wonderful groups who bring us together today. The Jewish Community Relations Council, the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, and of course the Indiana Civil Rights Commission. I also want to acknowledge all of the people who are in attendance today at this important ceremony. 81 years ago, the world was shocked by the news of an event which would become known as Kristallnacht. Nights of looting, destruction, and murder against Jews in German cities. Nights that prefigured just some of the horror that was to come in the Holocaust. Today, in remembrance, we will listen to stories, and we will also call to mind the people of that time. Some may wonder why we do this, why we focus on such a deeply troubling and horrific moment in our history. Well, for one, because there are many heroes in times of trouble. We must honor and remember the sacrifice of those heroes. But there is another reason. In fact, German Chancellor Angela Merkel put it well last year at an 80th anniversary observance of Kristallnacht. She said, "We are commemorating that time with the promise that we will set ourselves strongly against attacks on our open and plural society today." Teaching lessons like that, to me, is history's greatest power, which is why we will also hear a first-hand account of that time. We are tremendously lucky to have Ernie Lorch at this ceremony. His story, both tragic and inspiring, will help to enliven such a critical moment in history. My thanks to him, both for his presence here today, as well as for the valuable service he rendered for our nation during World War II. And finally, I want to acknowledge all of those students who are with us today. As the next generation to lead our world, I'm happy that you all have the opportunity to hear from today's leaders and eyewitnesses to history. Every generation learns from the one before it. At least I hope that's so. In this way, we can avoid the repetition of mistakes and make our city, our state, our nation, and our world a better place for all of us. We must never forget. We must always, always remember. It is in that spirit I am honored to join with you on this solemn occasion. I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Monica Kozlowski, and I'm a regional director for United States Senator Todd Young. The senator asked that I read the following letter at this time. Fellow Hoosiers, I regret I am unable to attend the 21st Annual State of Indiana Holocaust Remembrance Program and Names Reading Ceremony, but know that my warm thoughts are with you all. I am proud that Indiana remembers the Holocaust and sets aside this annual event to honor the memories of the victims and survivors. This ceremony is an important demonstration by our community of the pride all Hoosiers take in pushing back against hate and intolerance in all its forms.
I applaud all of those involved in today's program for bringing our communities together to remember, reflect, and honor the victims and survivors. I will continue to do my part as your United States Senator to push back against anti-Semitism and hate in our state and nation. Thanks to all of the organizers and participants for making this event possible. It is an honor to represent you in the United States Senate. Please do not hesitate to contact my office if we can be helpful. Your friend in service, Todd Young, United States Senator.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Suchet Downey, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Congressman Andre Carson. He's our congressional representative for the 7th District of Indiana, where we sit this morning, and he sends the following message on this solemn occasion. Dear friends, it is my honor to welcome you to the state of Indiana's 21st Annual Holocaust Remembrance Program, organized by the Jewish Community Relations Council. For 2 decades, this program has played a pivotal role in remembering a time in history that should never be overlooked, for as often said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. The month of November holds significance, coinciding with Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, and it provides an important opportunity to reflect on this important event that demonstrated how the Holocaust could happen due to the silence of bystanders. Sadly, in current political climates, we find ourselves in troubling times again with rising hate among religious and other minorities, including Jewish community members. We see anti-Semitic and other discriminatory speech and acts espoused with increased boldness. Today, Hoosiers of all faiths and ethnic backgrounds gather to honor our Jewish family. We come together to remember a dark period in our shared past, but also to commit to a future where we collectively stand for justice, love, and peace for all. I would like to thank the Jewish Community Relations for organizing this important event, as well as the Indiana Rights Commission and the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis. On behalf of the 7th Congressional District, I will continue to support efforts that honor our past while forging a path to a more peaceful future for all. Sincerely, Andre Carson, Member of Congress.
Good morning. My name is Cantor Aviva Maurer. I'm the cantor at the Indianapolis Hebrew Congregation, and it is my honor to be with you this morning. In a moment, I will share and sing for you a poem written by Hannah Senech. Hannah Senech was born in Hungary and emigrated to Israel at the age of 18. During World War II, she volunteered with the British Air Forces on a secret mission and then proceeded to parachute into enemy territory, where she was later killed. Eli, Eli, or Halacha al Kisaria, is her most famous poem, and that is what I will sing for you this morning.
Shelo yigamer leolam.
was just stunning. Cantor Aviva, thank you. This year, our Holocaust remembrance coincides with the 81st anniversary of Kristallnacht. Our students here with us this morning learned a lot about it, and I hope everyone will take a minute to look at the acrostic poems that the students made at this morning's Education Summit over in the Government Center. They learned about the role of perpetrators, the experience of victims, the role of bystanders, and what it means to be an upstander. Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, was a pogrom, an organized and violent riot carried out against Jews by both the military and civilians throughout Nazi Germany on the nights of November 9th and 10th, 1938. The name Kristallnacht comes from the shards of broken glass that littered the streets after the windows of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues were smashed. Kristallnacht was an essential turning point in Nazi Germany's persecution of Jews. Today, we have the honor of hearing from a survivor of Kristallnacht. It is really my pleasure and honor to be introducing Ernie Lorch, who in addition to being a survivor is also a World War II veteran and a local philanthropist. Ernie was born in 1923 in Nuremberg, Germany. As the everyday lives and freedoms of German Jews deteriorated in Germany in the mid to late 1930s, Ernie and his mother were fortunate to immigrate to the United States, arriving in 1939, just months after Kristallnacht. When the United States entered the war in 1941, Ernie enlisted in the US Army. Because he was fluent in German, he was assigned to a British intelligence unit to interrogate captured Nazi soldiers. His unit, and Ernie personally, questioned some of Nazi Germany's highest-ranking officers and officials prior to their prosecution at the Nuremberg trials. After the war, Ernie wed his wife Ellen. They raised 2 children. He had a successful career and has been a generous philanthropist. Today, Ernie will share his story with us. It is my honor to introduce a wonderful man and a personal friend, Ernie Lorch.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome you and to thank all of you for doing so. Thank you for Mr. Mayor, in absence our governor, many friends, school children. I'm happy to see you and their teachers and parents, and the many organizations that are represented by the Holocaust celebration. Also my family and some relatives. Don't let me forget those. As you heard, my name is Ernie Lorch, and I was born in the city of Nuremberg in the good year of 1923, which is a few years ago. Family has lived in Nuremberg for many, many years. Early members of the family are reputed to arrive in Germany with the Roman army, which means about the year 700 or 800. Can't be too sure about that. The names came from tombstones. And as we know, you can't be sure what's on tombstones, say your families, but it's a good possibility. Family was in the jewelry business, fine jewelry business, grandfather and father, and very happy living in Germany until the time came that Adolf Hitler took over the government, which was the happy or unhappy year of 1933. things began to change rapidly. Boycott of Jewish businesses, Jewish men were arrested, sent to concentration camps. All kinds of peculiarities happened. Taxes were raised, confiscation of artwork, silverware, anything of value. The idea was to make Jews as uncomfortable living in Germany as that's possible. And believe me, it was possible to make them uncomfortable. It was not good. Jewish stores were boycotted. Rocks were thrown at windows. Signs were put on the stores with a sign Jew on it. And Nazi hordes would walk through the streets singing very unpleasant songs. And existence was beginning to be quite shaky. And it didn't get any better. I was in grade school at the time, being 1933. I was about 13 years old by that time. And it was a very uncertain, unhappy, insecure existence for most of the Jewish families. Time passed, and every day there were new regulations, confiscation of Jewish properties, confiscation of Jewish money, bank accounts, anything that could be taken away. And you had to deliver things like artwork, carpets, anything that of value that were handed over to the city government to do with, and probably sold at the time. Eventually came the year of 1937. 1937 is sort of a markstone in Jewish existence in Germany. Hitler passed something called the Nuremberg laws. Nuremberg was his favorite city, so when he passed unpleasant laws, he felt maybe he had to attach a very pleasant name to it. It stated that Jewish doctors no longer could practice in hospitals. Jewish lawyers could no longer practice in courts. Businesses had to be sold and gotten rid of. Households could no longer employ employees, cooks, people that would take care of the home, which made existence for women that had never done that sort of thing even more unpleasant. And Jewish kids could no longer go to German schools. I was the only Jewish kid in my high school. It was not a worthwhile effort, but I got tossed out. So here was the summer of 1937. My parents decided I needed to be sent to England for a summer camp, learn English if possible. The decision had been made that we needed to leave Germany. And we were fortunate enough to obtain visas to the United States to leave early 1939. And as we know, timing is everything. In this case, it was not very good timing. That summer, I was on my train ride to England. And before I went, 13 years old, I have, somewhat like you kids are, I was outfitted with diamond rings and earrings and stick pins, all in with diamonds, gold bracelets and things, in order to be able to get something of value out of Germany. The stones, the diamonds were smeared with soap so they wouldn't sparkle too much, so they wouldn't be caught taking them out. So here I was on the train going to England, and we get to the border between Holland and Germany, and the German green police would come through and check the passports, and the officer looked at my passport, looked at me and said, "Come with me." I didn't know why I wasn't too comfortable going. He said, here, I'll put you in this little room by the train, and I'll come back and get you after a while. So there I sat, wondering what I had done wrong to be arrested by the police. But he did come, and I asked him, so what was this all about? And he said, well, you looked older than I thought you were, and I thought maybe you'd try to avoid military service. Interesting comment, because I'm Jewish, and kids were supposed to be all excited about going to the military. Apparently, there were some that weren't, so they were looking for them. So anyway, here was back on the train, going to England, and I arrived. Had a very nice time playing tennis and soccer and learning how to speak English as well as I could. I had English in school, so I had a good beginning, but it was great fun, really. Summer was over, and back home to Nuremberg, and my parents I went. The school had started, and I was sent to a boarding school in the city of Berlin. Berlin is the capital of Germany. And the school was run by the University of Cambridge, so that was an appropriate place to learn English. And it was a lovely school. I liked it. And my high school, as many American and German high schools are, was all boys. This one was co-educational, so there were girls. And I must say, I enjoyed it. So I had 1 year there when things began to fall apart again. You heard about Crystal Night. Crystal Night was sort of the beginning of all end. And I don't want to go into more detail. I think you heard enough of it. But as you heard, it was the night when synagogues were burned down, houses were invaded, people were murdered, a lot of damage was being done. So during the night, this all took place all over Germany. And I got a phone call in the morning from home, and it said, please come home. Your dad is very ill. We want you to see him. And so our headmaster put me in a cab with somebody, and we went to the railroad station. I bought my ticket. From Berlin to Nuremberg is a 5-hour train ride, and I sat in my train wondering what in the world was going on, knowing fully well that things were not going well. So you're a little nervous, to say the least. Arrived in Nuremberg at the railroad station, was met by one of our family friends, and informed what had happened. My father, during the night, had been in a hospital. He had a scar tissue that was wider than he thought it should be. He wanted to have it repaired, and so he was in the hospital. During the night, the hordes came in the hospital, took all the, this was a Jewish hospital, by the way, took all the patients out of their beds, lined them up outside, and my dad got hit over the head with a rifle butt, which killed him immediately. My dad was 47, very nice man, whoops. And totally unexpected. So I arrived at the house. Things were pretty bad at home. All the furniture had been turned over, all the glass, china, furniture, you name it, had been destroyed. The Nazis had come in with their bayonets and slashed the paintings and the chairs and the furniture. It was a mess. And my mother was obviously very upset. The following morning, here I was at the cemetery, all by myself, and the gravedigger. Everybody was scared to death. They were hiding as much as they could, and I went. Not a pleasant experience. We buried him, and I went home. There was nobody around. All our friends had hidden, or the men who were arrested. And for a while, till things began to settle back down again, there was havoc at home, to say the least. We had our visa for the United States. We were fortunate. My father had a school friend who came visiting his parents in Nuremberg every year, and he said, "Fritz," that was my father's name, "Germany is no place for you. Leave." And my father said, "Where? Go to the United States. I don't know anybody. What am I going to do? How do we make a living? I'll stay here. Things will get better." Can you hear me? I'm beginning to walk away. Things go better. We've had dictators in the world before. They never last forever. And that was definitely a bad prediction of things to come. We packed up our things in a packing case, furniture, bedding, all the things that we could take out, the ones that they didn't confiscate. And early in January, we left for London because we were to go on a German ship. See, when you don't have any money, you take the ship that you can pay for. We went on the German ship. I don't think it was a good idea, but we got there. We arrived in New York early in March. Been in New York for 3 years. 3 years later, I was in the United States Army, drafted, basic service, basic training in Anniston, Alabama, beautiful place. And before too long, back on the ship, on the way to North Africa. We landed in Oran. This was in Morocco. There were 5,000 men on that troop transport. We went en masse. Rommel was still fighting in North Africa, and we were becoming part of the British fighting the Germans. And as we know, we beat Rommel. I ended in a replacement center in Tunis. Tunis is in the news again at the moment. Nice city, by the way. And I was assigned to General Eisenhower's headquarters in Algiers. Algiers, the capital of Algeria, big city. And it was an intelligence unit, and we interrogated pilots, captains of ships, whatever it took to find out why they were so good at hitting our ships in Gibraltar, and they were. Fortunately, we were able to find out why. They had a new bomb site that we didn't know anything about. Nothing was very effective. The unit was decorated for discovering it. I have a medal for it today. Was part of the jobs we did. We were in Italy, we were in southern France, we were in northern France, and eventually I got assigned to the War Crimes Commission, but that's another story. That was a very interesting assignment. I got to have breakfast with Mr. Goering and Mr. Poppin, and we were 22 years old. We weren't 96 like I am today. It was an assignment. It was quite an interesting part of my history. And eventually I got the honor to take all the war crimes accused Nazis to the court in Nuremberg. And you may remember I was born in Nuremberg, and I ended taking them back to Nuremberg. Interesting assignment. I kind of thought maybe justice was done. Winter came, and in December of 1945, we had gotten to the point 3 years later, after arriving. We were back on the ship, back to the United States, our unit, and we arrived in the harbor of New York December 22nd. How can you forget? Beautiful, clear day. It was full of fireboats, and their sirens were blowing, and the fire hoses were going, and we passed the Statue of Liberty. And not a dry eye on the ship, believe me. 3 years overseas, fighting a war. It's another story, but it was a long time. By the 24th, Christmas Eve, I was discharged, met my girlfriend, whom I had written to for 3 long years through the war. And we were married eventually in 1947, had 2 lovely children, doing very well. I have 4 granddaughters and 1 great-grandchild in the meantime, 2 months old, nice little guy. And and anyway, we were married 62 years, and she died 10 years ago, sadly. Today I'm living with my friend Elaine over here, very happy, and thank you, Elaine. And I could tell you about our war years, but I think my time is up. So I want to tell you a few things I want to say at the very end of it. There's a moral to this story. It covered all the Nazi years personally, as you saw. And freedom is not free. It needs to be paid for and paid attention to, and we need to talk about it, and we need to act on it. Today we see things in Washington that I personally do not like, that I feel offend my ideals, and they need to be paid attention to. So, thank you all very much. I forgot to mention my friend Sven Schumacher. He is here also. And thank you for being here. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you.
This is such a gift. I know all of the students hearing you speak, hearing you share these experiences, relive them for us, do so with a smile and with a tear. It stays with us, and we will always honor your experience, the loss, the losses that you experienced, and the gift that you gave this country by serving during World War II. Thank you so much for being with us, Ernie. I'm going to walk you downstairs because you're going to light the first candle.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go down this way, and will the other candle lighters please stand in front of the dais over here to, let's go down that ramp over there.
Okay. We light these candles for the millions of people, young and shy, confident people just like you and me who died in the Holocaust. Candle number 1, which is lit by me in the crystal night. As Jews, we know that there are very few of us who have been untouched by the displacement, dehumanization, and systematic murder that was the Holocaust. We light a candle in the memory of our family members who perished, and for the families that never even came into existence, and for the families that were completely annihilated, lie in unmarked graves, and have no one left to mourn their loss. That includes my dad, my grandmother, who also died in Theresienstadt, and another grandmother who did make it out alive and lived in Indianapolis.
We light a candle for people with intellectual, developmental, or physical disabilities who were killed as a part of the Nazis' euthanasia program. We refuse to allow the victims of the Holocaust to be forgotten in history.
Good afternoon, my name is Tabitha Barber. I am the program director at Indie Pride. It's an honor to participate in this ceremony today. We light a candle to remember the people who were destroyed for being different, for being themselves. This includes those who were oppressed and killed because of their gender identity, sexuality, and sexual identity.
We light a candle in memory of other religious minorities who were singled out for destruction. People labeled as other, who were feared, despised, and murdered.
We light a candle for the righteous among the nations who stood up for justice and light, risked their lives to save fellow humans, and even amidst the horror and darkness. We light a candle for the brave soldiers as actions of nations who liberated the camps and carried the near dead in their arms to a more human future.
John Clark who's setting his beard on fire. I'm John Clark with Obot Helpers. Obot Helpers is working with Rohingya victims of genocide in Bangladesh. We light a candle for those who live even now under the yoke of oppression in places throughout the world where the threat of genocide is real and ever present.
I've now been invited to offer a prayer that we traditionally offer at a funeral or at a burial. The prayer El Male Rachamim requests that God take the soul of the departed into God's hand and comfort it for eternal life. It is my honor to invite you to rise as you are able.
Male Rachamim shochein bamromim Hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina Im kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia mazhiri et nishmat yakirenu shehalach leolamo Ba'al harachamim yastireu b'seter kenafav leolamim Veitzror hachayim et nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam Ve'anuach b'shalom al mishkavam Ve'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the 6 million Jews and the almost 6 million others who were killed mercilessly in the Holocaust. O God of mercy, let them find refuge in your eternal presence and let their souls be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. You are their inheritance. May they rest in peace, and together we say, Amen. You may be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Rabbi Jenny Greenspan. I am the assistant rabbi at Congregation Bethel Zedek here in Indianapolis. I was asked to offer some reflections on this morning, and as a rabbi, I find myself always looking to the Torah as my mirror, the 5 books of Moses. And the portion of the Torah that every synagogue will be reading from this coming Shabbat, tomorrow morning, contains an episode that I think painfully relevant to today. Abraham, our forefather, cast out Hagar, his maidservant, along with the son that he and Hagar bore together. That child and Hagar must wander the desert in hopes of survival until God hears and comes to the boy's aid. You have to wonder, how could Abraham do this? How could any of us cast out a son, a friend, a brother, a neighbor? It's actually subtly there in the text. You erase his name. Throughout the entirety of the chapter 21 of the book of Genesis, that child's name is never explicitly stated. Like so many victims of cruelty and so many victims of the Holocaust, he is in danger of dying nameless until God hears him cry. And there, hidden in the Hebrew of the narrative, reappears his name. Vayishma Elohim et kol hana'ar. And God heard the voice of the child. Vayishma Elohim. And God heard. Vayishma Elohim. Vayishma Elohim. Yishmael, the cousin of the Jewish people, is that child. And there, when God sees his suffering and hears his cries, his name is brought back, and his memory and his strength is brought back to him. When we remember the Holocaust, we remember the cruelty that human beings can do to one another, what has been done
to Jews, and to many, many other people. Far too often, when human beings are cruel to one another, we erase the names of our victims, hoping not to face what we do to another person, to another face of God. We dehumanize them. The victims of the Holocaust know far too well that they were expected to die in namelessness. And when I reflect on this horrendous tendency of our species and on this passage of the Torah, our sacred text, I am reminded of how powerful an act it can be just to reinstate a person's name. It returns their humanity to him. And let us today take this lesson to heart. Let us hear names, let us say names, and remember those people who lived and who they were. Let us remember the people who endured horrendous pain and who were so much more than that pain and their worst experience. Let us give them back their names and carry forward their lessons and their legacies. And let us say their names so that God may hear their souls again. Thank you.
For 77 years, the Indianapolis Jewish Community Relations Council has been the Jewish community's interfaith, intergroup, and public policy arm. Established while the Holocaust was unfolding in Europe, JCRC's mission is to safeguard Jews and other minority groups by combating anti-Semitism, bigotry, and prejudice through relationship building, advocacy, and education. We seek partnerships wherever possible and advocate for the civil rights of all people. This is a mission that we will never stop pursuing, and the Jewish community will always be on the front lines, pursuing justice for all people. Not all states conduct a remembrance program and name reading ceremony like this one. The Jewish community of Indianapolis is incredibly proud that each year we are joined by representatives of the highest levels of our state and city government, as well as so many Hoosiers and students in our Capitol building. Today, we would of course like to thank Mayor Hogsett for being here with us today, as well as the representatives of Senator Young and Congressman Carson. I also want to recognize Steve Carter is here on behalf of Senator Mike Braun, and Karen Glazer is here on behalf of Congresswoman Susan Brooks, and also want to thank State Senator John Runklehouse for being here with us. For the last 21 years, the JCRC has been honored to partner with the Indiana Civil Rights Commission to commemorate the Holocaust with this special program. Thank you to the team at the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, including Greg Wilson, John Hawkins, and Lisa Welch. This year, we were also pleased to partner with the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis for a student summit and educational workshop this morning that explored the role of the bystander. Thank you, students, for spending the day on this important matter. Thank you also to Cantor Aviva Merer, Rabbi Jenny Greenspan, and our musicians, Ginny Womack and David Duncan, for helping to make today's program both beautiful and meaningful. And thank you to our candlelighters for participating in this important act of remembrance. And finally, thank you so much to Ernie Lorch for sharing your story with us. Your harrowing experience, your strength to survive, your service to our country, and your support of meaningful Jewish programs throughout your life are true gifts that you have given to each one of us here today. We promise to keep your experience with us always. Thank you.